Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes now. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to the Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sunday service, and joining me today is two debut boys. So we have got Neil and Leon. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi, fine, great. Thanks, Mike. Good to see you on screen as well as in person.
Lovely.
Yeah, nice to finally make a debut.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I've been hassling Neil for a little. Not Neil, sorry, Neil. You came to me the other day, and I was like, "Oh, that was a bad timed email." And Leon, I've been hassling you for a little while because you were one of the first to kind of retweet me and push it out there. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get you on at some stage as well." So thank you both for all that. Everyone listening, we are live on the normal places: Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. So if you do have a comment, give us a shout. Apparently, I've worked out how to read them on Twitter now because it wasn't as simple as it should have been. I'm not saying I'll remember to look at it, but apparently I know how to do it now. But yeah, thanks for joining. Just give us a little bit of history because, as I say, I've not spoken to either of you before. Neil, if I start with you, just tell us a little bit about your Sutton United bad luck. I mean, history, not bad luck. You let some things slip yesterday, which was a mistake. But
It was a mistake. Yeah, I think that was very much the kiss of death. So as I said to you yesterday, I've been a long-term fan, but I don't really regard myself as being a proper fan until sort of like the recent last sort of 10 years or so. So my father was born in Cressingham Grove in Sutton in the 1930s. So he used to go along with his father and his uncle and his aunt, and they would also go to Millwall games. So that would, because they had a family business in Bermondsey. So that was the connection. I don't know whether this is true because my father has obviously passed away now, but he claims to have been a ball boy just after the Second World War. The 1945, that's sort of when he was about 13. He used to play for one of the sort of Sutton junior teams, and they got to be ball boys in turn. So he was always raving about Charlie Vaughan from the 1940s. So I used to hear about Charlie Vaughan, every time. Everybody was never be as good as Charlie Vaughan.
no.
So I think I went to my first game when I was about 5 or 6 on the back of my father's old motorbike. He used to... we lived down in Hawley in Surrey, so he used to take me along to games when it wasn't too cold, because my mother was convinced I was going to catch a cold, and he would take me along to various games if I behaved myself. And I seem to remember either being standing on his shoulders, or he used to hold me on the fence in front of the old cinder track, and that was how I could see the games. So sort of my first sort of players that I really sort of liked from the 1960s, I sort of remember sort of Larry Pritchard and Trevor Bladen and John Faulkner. And then sort of later on, sort of the heroes were sort of Paul McKinnon and Trevor Bladen and Mickey Joyce. But I think sort of the recent players, I think my favourites were sort of Andy Scott, Efan Okoku and Rory Deacon from the most,
More recent history.
Yeah, but as I said, really sort of I went to a few games. My dad would take me along to all of the big games, but unfortunately, this is the bit Mike was alluding to. He stopped taking me because I tended to be the kiss of death. Whenever he took me along to a big important game, we'd invariably lose. So the 2 cup finals, the Wickham semi-final in the trophy when we'd gone and won at Wickham, which was almost unheard of, and then lost 4-0 at home. He took me to the Coventry game because he didn't believe we were going to win that, so it wouldn't make any difference.
And it did.
But of course, so we won in that. We won on that occasion. And as I said to Mike yesterday, I used to be very careful about when I decided to go to a game because invariably it would end in tears. My father died sort of in the early 2000s, so I hadn't been for many years, being at university, moving down to Gloucester, family commitments and all that sort of thing. I was generally somebody who used to follow it in the newspapers and, pre-internet. So I didn't, it was many years before I started to go again regularly, really to sort of reunite many sort of childhood memories of my father. So I sort of became a better fan in the 2000s, but it's only sort of just recently that I've started to be able to go to games, away games and things like that. So I've probably been to about half of the games this year at home, and I've managed 4 or 5 in the Wembley game away. So I do actually regard myself as being sort of more of a proper fan now.
Get your little badge. I was going to say about the ball boys. It was likely to be very true because obviously the track meant the pitch was miles away. So if the ball went off, we did have lots of ball boys running after them because they needed to be very fit. And Leon, let's hear your connection. How did you start supporting Sutton?
So as like Neil, I only regard myself as a proper Sutton fan in sort of recent years. I started following Sutton probably around 2016. That was because myself, I still currently play football. I've always played football my sort of whole life. So just around the area, I knew certain players. So the first player that I sort of linked myself with Sutton with was Bradley Hudson-Odoi, brother Callum Hudson-Odoi. So we were sort of around.
It's the other way around. Callum's Bradley's brother. Yeah, Callum. Yeah.
Bradley's the older brother.
Bradley's more important than Callum. Don't let anyone take anything different.
Bradley's the more important brother. He played for Sutton.
Absolutely.
So I knew of him, and one of my best friends was brother of Byron Harrison, who Sutton had on loan for a couple games. He played about 13, 14 games, scored a couple. So I knew his brother. So. And obviously he played for Sutton, so I was quite. I sort of always lived around South London, and then 4 years ago I moved to Sutton. So I was like, okay, I'm now local. So and it's always been a nice area. It's just been nice people in Sutton, and then the football team. I just started following them more and more over the years. So this was before the FA Cup game against Arsenal. So before that. I was following Sutton, and I just became a bigger and bigger fan as I lived in Sutton, went to more and more games and enjoyed it. So I'm here for life.
I've said this lots of times. People, you get these little connections, and then they suck you in. They just
they suck you in.
And you're like, this club is not right in the head, and it fits everyone for some different level. But what you said about the players, it's all. I find it interesting. I used to run various different Sunday teams. And I find there's loads and loads of players in this area, just loads of football players at different levels. But it's so incestuous because everyone knows each other. And it's like, once you catch one, you can then start getting more and more players in. It's really good. And I think that's happening sort of in the ranks because you hear about the connections. I didn't realise that Will and Ben had a connection at Wolves and so on and so on. So, it's really good. But, the club, fantastic bunch of weirdos. I don't know if either of you went to or saw already the pictures of the awards night last night.
Saw it on the website because it was interested to see who'd won what.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't disagree with Ben virtually. Sweeping board.
Yeah. But I think the biggest story for me was the tambourine was sold for £775.
That's an expensive tambourine.
Yes. Okay, and then it was donated straight back to the club. So I don't know who actually did that in the end, but it's just brilliant, very Sutton story. But we do kind of have to talk about the game. That's what we're here for. It was not a great time of the season to put in that kind of result. It's. Again, had it happened in August, brushed it off, whatever, it's fine, move on. but just for the last home game of the season, and took us it out of our hands for the very first time for a long time.
Yeah, I think it was with the expectation. I think sort of going into the game, I think everyone was on a sort of high from the Crawley game. And we thought, okay, last home game of the season, we're going to sort of bring it to them, give it to them. But obviously the performance didn't really match that. So I think it was we was on the high, and then the performance sort of brought us back to earth, kind of thing. Sort of with the promotion push, but that's just football. That's how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, to go into a match against Bradford City as favourites is just ridiculous, and to have that sense of disappointment. But I know you and I spoke a little bit before the match, Neil. But what were you thinking of the first half? I mean,
well, as you said, as I think I said to you before the match, I wasn't feeling confident. I hadn't got a good feeling about it. It just, I get these gut instincts, and it's easy with hindsight to say I was right, but started brilliantly the first minute or so. That could have so easily, with that shot bending and just hitting the outside of the post. But after that, I think Bradford had 3 shots in the first 5 minutes, and it was a bit like the Crawley game, but Bradford converted it. I thought they looked a very, very good team, and they worked us out. I think that was, Mark Hughes is, he's no dummy, and I think he'd worked out the way to sort of stifle us. And they took advantage of the huge amounts of space that we got in midfield. I hate to say it, but I think Harry went absent, and he was dropping far too back. He was sort of playing more like a sweeper in front of the back four, and they just took advantage of that space. They were fast. They passed quickly. And unfortunately, whenever we got the ball in midfield, we were looking to sort of pass the ball sideways or back. We weren't looking at that forward quick pass. So we negated it. I think it was inevitable that they took they deservedly took the lead. And I don't think anybody begrudged it. But and the other thing I said to you before the game, Mike, missing Joe Kizzy, I thought was key. And John Barden that was his man. He didn't pick him up, and he nodded it. He nodded in a very good cross, but he got ahead of John and just he couldn't really miss. Yeah.
And Leon, your thoughts?
Yeah, so same as Neil. I thought midfield did cost us quite a bit in that game. It wasn't as tight. I actually, even despite the win at the Crawley game, I still thought our midfield wasn't as solid as it could be. I think the result sort of hid that. But I think that's where Bradford found us out. And as Neil said, also Kizzy's he's been a massive miss. I play right back, so I'm a bit critical of John, but he did have a sort of second half of the Crawley game. He had a better second half in the Crawley game. But yeah, Bradford, we just came out. I was on the side where Will hit the post, but I feel like we came out just really slow. It was there wasn't much of a plan in the first half. We just couldn't keep hold of the ball as well. We just kept on giving away the ball. So they deserved the first sort of that first half. Yeah. So
yeah,
we just didn't seem. It was sort of that. I think we had a bit of fear going in that half. I think the expectation as well. It kind of had that little bit of the Wembley sort of feel of the expectation of this is a big game for us in the playoff sort of push. So it could have been a bit of nerves as well.
Yeah. I think we looked nervy. The first minute aside, the whole of the first half we looked nervy, we looked indecisive, and I think it also became apparent. I think we're actually we're carrying a few more injuries than actually Matt's admitted in press conferences.
I'd say there are some sort of half fit people running around. John, I don't think would have been back in the side had Joe not been injured. Because I don't think John's quite there for match fitness. But all that aside, we obviously hit the post with Will. There was a fairly big shout of penalty for Richie, which I'd actually forgotten about until someone mentioned it on I think the forum. I think they put it on. I did, and I think Harry said as well. It just didn't seem us. It was flat. I think then you just said it was flat as well. And I was kind of just sitting there saying, look, if we can get to 1-0 at half, if we stay 1-0 by half time, I think it's going to switch, because for some reason I've noticed referees do this a little bit when they've given us not a lot. And I know we were baying for everything, but when they've given us not a lot in the first half, they sometimes come out in the second half, whether they've checked with their linos or something, just to say, oh, was there a lot more shirt putting than I thought? And then suddenly we've got loads and loads of free kicks early in the second half.
The rest performance, I don't want to talk too much about it, but
yeah,
he was absolutely shocking.
Erratic and interesting, I think, could be one description. But yeah, he definitely tried to sort of even things up second half. Certainly with the shirt pulling, which was just bizarre. There was so much going on, and on another day, if they decided to stamp it, there could have been 3 or 4 penalties. I mean, it wouldn't have got to that stage, because if they'd stamped it out earlier, then they would have got the message and not done it. I mean, Leon, you play, and I've had lots and lots of experience with people playing that you just, as soon as the referee lets you get away with it, you're just going to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until he doesn't. And that's why years and years and years ago, when a new referee at the Morning District League, when I was in, I just said, you just got to stamp it out. First few games, if you yellow card for everything, you'll get a reputation and people will leave you alone. But yeah, he came out second half, evened it all up. Just had a comment from Alan on Facebook, I think he is, and he said it's the first time we've heard a ref booed off at half time this season. And yeah, it was just a strange performance. But then, because he was evening it up the second half, it just felt like we were screaming for everything. It was just like the ball that did it cross the line? No, it was quite obviously not across the line, but there was a certain element of doubt in his mind there that we could have had him swing it our way. Ali scored another great goal. Only thing I'm upset about that is I think every other time Ali scored 2 goals, in every single time he's scored, he's gone on to score another. And I was sitting there going, right, that's it now, we've won. Ali's going to get the winner. And he didn't do it. And then for their goal, I think Matt said it, Dave got injured. It took a little knock as he was attacking, and that's why he didn't run back. And they scored from there. And then once it was 2-1, I just kind of thought the wind just went from my sails at that point.
Yeah, I didn't see us sort of really getting back into it. I was hoping, as I said, in the second half, we had so many set pieces, but we just sort of lacked the quality on them, which is, you don't really say that really with sort of Rob normally on them. So, but we just didn't. Yeah, we just sort of lacked the quality on those set pieces. I was hoping we'll get another one, and sort of going back to Ali. Another quality strike. That's like 3. What's that? 3 in a week. Those type of strikes. So he's been, for me, he's getting better and better each game. So yeah, big fan of him.
Except he needs 3 more years at our club to develop. Anyone listen, we don't want him going anywhere. But yeah, what were your thoughts, Neil? Sort of when that second goal went in, did you still have that little hope, or extinguished?
I think we were very naive from being 2-1 down, because I think we looked to be pushing and throwing everything forward to try and snatch an equaliser. And the third goal came from Rob could have easily put the ball out for a throw-in, but he actually put it back inside, which actually turned out to give them possession, which they then exploited. I think that's going to come back and bite us, because actually our goal difference was one of the things that might still have helped us sneak a place. We've now dropped 3 goals on our goal difference. I think we should have actually sort of put the shutters up a bit and actually accepted the 2-1. We could have perhaps sneaked from a corner or a free kick that 2-1. But I think we should have accepted it wasn't our day. it's hard to say, it's hard to do this in the heat of the moment. But with hindsight, I think we should have accepted the fact it wasn't our day. And in fact, a 2-1 defeat, though painful as it wasn't terminal. A 4-1 defeat possibly could be, because, there is conceivably a situation where we'll miss out on that final promotion playoff place on goal difference. So that's my feeling. It shows you how you get in the heat of the moment. I didn't realise we were down to 10 men for the last 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
That completely passed me by.
Yeah. There was also a point, I don't know if you guys do look at the other results during the match, but I think it was even up to the 80th minute, we were losing, and I think we'd actually gone up a place because Bristol Rovers were losing.
Yeah, Bristol Rovers were losing 3-1 to Rochdale, and then they started just, and they were 3-1 down, but they scored 3 times. We were 2-1 down, 3-1 down, and we then conceded another one. So that shows you the difference. Yeah. And then Swindon, I think.
Yeah, Swindon were drawing in.
They were drawing as well. So there was a point I was like, okay, we've lost this, but you know what? It's actually not been a bad day because we're all right. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, Swindon have equalised, just taken the lead, and Bristol Rovers have equalised. Oh shit, no, they've just scored a winner. So yeah, it was a difficult day at the office. But I do ask, I've got 2 myself written down. I think we're all going to agree on 1. But I asked for some players of the day, so it doesn't necessarily have to be for like man of the match nominations. It can be for any reason we like. Because I make up the rules as I go along, and so I've got Ali and Omar, but is there any other players you can kind of chuck in there so I can have a little poll to see who gets the Player of the Day nomination?
I still thought Will put in a shift, and I think he always does put in a shift. He came in, as I said to you yesterday, Mike, he came in for criticism sort of after sort of Christmas in January and all that sort of thing. But I think he's a confidence player. He gets, the longer he gets a run, the better he gets. And that was though it hit the post, that was still some quality footwork to bend the ball in the way that he did. So just for that one bit of sheer skill, I'd nominate Will. Perfect.
That's all I need. Leon, who do you want to go for?
I'll go for the Defenders Union, even though we conceded this ball. I'll go with Dino. He made quite a lot of saves, actually. It could have been worse because there was quite a lot of shots raining in the first half. So I'll go with Dino.
Yeah, he's one of those things you always... I think back to many, many, many years ago, Kevin Keegan was at Newcastle and they just played West Ham. And he came out and was singing the praises of the goalkeeper at West Ham at the time, Les Seeley, and said that was the best goalkeeping performance you'll ever see. And I think Newcastle had scored 7 or 8, and the press were like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "He must have made 50 saves." So yeah, it is one of those strange things that goalkeepers conceded for, but actually could have been a lot more. So I agree with you.
Yeah, some fancy footwork as well.
Yeah.
Can I nominate a curveball?
Go on, try.
Which would be the linesman on the far side. I'm not convinced that the 2 goals they disallowed for offside actually were offside.
I know, I think they absolutely were, because the linesman put the flag up and the ref blew the whistle, so that's it, they're offside.
But having looked back on the highlights, I'm not so sure, certainly on one of them.
Well, I was, on games like this, I always get a little bit worried, and I'm going to say it now because we've only got a couple of games left, that I worry someone's going to nominate someone on the bench, say, well, they came out of it very well, because Joe Kizzy had a great game yesterday and he didn't play, so everyone's singing Joe's praises and he wasn't even there. So that would be embarrassing. But yeah, so to just finish off, it was another thing that might have added to the nerviness is apparently that was our biggest gate at Gander Green Lane in a league since 1963. So 4,000 people, 4,010 I think, through the gate, which is just mental for Sutton United, because I've been there many times when there's not even 400, let alone 4,000. But yeah, that shows the strides we're taking. 4,000 people. I think we've averaged well over 3,000 this season. Hopefully we'll get a lot of them to come back next season and beyond. I don't know where the season tickets are at the moment, but hopefully some people are jumping in. I know poor Josh.
Over 1,000. Apparently, it's over 1,000 already.
Oh, that's good. I know my nephew Josh was delighted yesterday because he just dashed out all the money on a season ticket and then had to watch that performance just after that. So he was a happy bunny, but at least he got a cheap one. That's fine. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, so the awards night. So we mentioned Ben. He swept the board. He's got the club player, the young player, and the supporters player of the year. He didn't get the players player though because that went to Joe, and then Gareth Miller, as they described him, the merchandise maestro, got the clubman of the year. So well done to everyone there.
Could we just have a sort of general discussion about how we think that the new acquisitions have done over the season?
The players?
Yeah.
Yeah, I genuinely think every single player. I know there's been some where you could wonder at the levels, but I think every single player has performed well above what I would expect. Yeah. And I know you mentioned you felt there was a reason for it, Neil, which we'll come to. But yeah, I mean, who do you want to start with?
Well, I sort of got the impression that sort of Matt had recruited with a view to not necessarily playing those players. And I think he was very reluctant to play Joe and Ali initially, but then had to. But I would pick those two out as being absolutely outstanding. And I would now have those two as possibly, one of the first two that I always would want to see on the team sheet.
Definitely.
And I always look out to see whether they are there because I think they are class. But unfortunately, they're the sort of class that other clubs might come sniffing around, which concerns me. So those two, Richie blows hot and cold, but you can't really sort of criticize him for his work rate, which I think is phenomenal. He's committed. He plays extremely well, extremely hard, but his performance is up and down. Enzio, I've been disappointed with because again, I think he promises a lot more. And looking at the forums when we got him, Notts County said unless he feels sort of loved, he potentially can go walkabout. So I think he wastes his. But we haven't seen some of those mazy runs that he used to do with Notts County, with blistering shots. So I've been slightly disappointed with him. As I said to Mike yesterday as well, I think Ricky Corboa is potentially an asset for the future, and we've not really made as much of him as we could have done.
Yeah.
But again, and I've left somebody out, but I can't think who it is. Of their 5 acquisitions.
Oh God. Hang on.
I'm not counting Killian because he's obviously homegrown.
Yeah.
He looks a potential star player of the future.
Here we got Donovan.
No,
we had him.
We had him already.
Yeah. We signed. Yeah, we signed him fully. I can't remember.
Perhaps I haven't.
I think Richie. I think Richie's not problem, but I think if we didn't have Omar, everyone would be singing Richie's praises. It's just Omar does it a little bit better than Richie, which is why I put Omar down as one of my nominations because when he came on, it was just that lift.
And Matt said afterwards he wasn't fit, and he didn't look fit. He did not look like the normal Omar because he wasn't tracking back. And
well, I think there was that, but I also think the yellow card did not help him at all because when he gets a card that early, it just takes a little bit out. He can't just do that plan back because he's always on the risk of getting a second yellow. But yeah, what he does is just phenomenal for us. And I think, as I say, I think that could be part of Richie's inverted commas problem, because we've got Omar that he does it that little bit better. But yeah, I mean, it's really good. And you made a very valid point yesterday. You said that there was one person that you felt praises needs to be sung. So obviously, leaving aside Matt, one other person whose praise needs to be sung for the way we play this season. Neil, did you want to share that again? Or?
Yeah, I would say, the best, the person who's probably one of the most responsible for our performance over the whole season has been Dundo, because I think we are such a fit side. There's no way we can play this way unless we're absolutely fit, because I don't know whether they ever track the stats of how far the guys run over 90 minutes, but it must be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because they are literally covering every blade of grass. Normally when they fit, David is, at both ends of the pitch. So is, so is Omar, so are Richie. Everybody comes back.
Yeah.
And runs miles. Yeah. And runs miles. So I think, that is down to, that's down to Dundo, because he is obviously a class trainer. Look at what a specimen he is, and he's.
I was going to say that must be really annoying when you're sitting there thinking I can't put it in, and this pensioner starts running around the place, and you're like, oh, for God's sake, I've got to do it. Alan said he saw Omar in the bar afterwards, and he was in a lot of pain. So yeah, he obviously wasn't.
I don't think Omar's really been fit. I don't think he's really even fit at Wembley.
Yeah,
I think he's had the trouble for a while, actually. Yeah,
I think we've had a lot carrying a lot, because we've got such a small, tight squad.
Yeah.
Which has pluses and minuses, because what you're saying about potentially losing people, I think a lot of the senior players, we kind of point out to these guys that this unit, they all get on really, really well. And is the grass always greener? Yes, you could go and play football at a high level, as Louis did, and then realise actually there's just something not quite right, and want to come back. You never know. You never know. I just have a worry that if we start losing one or two, it may upset the balance and a few go in different slots. But we apparently have targets for almost every single position. I say apparently, but that's what Matt said, is he's got targets for every single position, which is still very strange to me to know that Sutton United have planned that far ahead. But we will move on. It's out of our hands slightly, but it's not the end of the world, because there are a few tough games for people to play. Swindon, Walsall, I don't think is a gimme that they could be. I know it looks very close with Port Vale and Mansfield at the moment, but they both playing tomorrow as well. And one of them's playing Salford, so it could dent their hopes, but it could then boost Salford's hopes as well. So it's like, oh, actually, that's no good. But yeah, although it's not in our hands anymore, it's still not the end of the world. Could have done without Harrogate getting a nice boost yesterday by winning 3-1 against they were the league leaders at the time. They're not anymore. And then going into their last game of the season. But hopefully we can spoil their party. Any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a tough game, but I know they're going to go out and give it their all. Whatever happens. I think this season it's hard not to forget. Even if we finish 8th or below, it's still a good season. We just came up, so I think I know we want to go playoffs and push for a promotion, but if they get it, it'd be great. We'll be back at Gander Green Lane for another home game. But if they don't, there's nothing we can do. Unfortunately, yesterday's game wasn't the greatest, but I do think we're going to go out and give it a real good go and just go all out. That's all we can do, is go all out, and hopefully the results go our way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder what sort of side actually we're going to be able to put out.
Yes,
I think
Yes.
I think we've lost Ben now, because he's done his knee. So, but obviously we've got Kobe to come in. Hopefully Eastie was back, because he was sort of having a try us on the pitch before the game yesterday, and he didn't
I saw him warming up.
He didn't look too bad to me. So hopefully Eastie will be back in midfield. But it's really a question of if potentially Richie and Omar are out, Ricky might well end up playing up front with Donovan.
You got Tance as well. Don't forget Tance. Tance came on.
Tanto does not look fit. He doesn't look sharp. He doesn't look fit. So I think we've had a wasted season with him. He's only scored sort of 5 or 6, and we haven't seen any of those blistering runs and getting the ball. He just always the ball seems to be always just half a pace ahead of him, And I think again how injured he was has been not appreciated by all of us. For him, it's been a bit of a wasted season in terms of his progression, which has been disappointing. But we've not missed having a out and out goal scorer. As I said to you, Mike, yesterday, 16 different players have scored in the league. When I looked in the programme, it was 17, but I was forgetting the 17th was we've only had 1 own goal scored for us this year.
Well, that's what we'll have. We'll have a couple own goals in the next 4 games. That's what we're hoping for. But yeah, so I'm hoping that we can, as I said, can't remember who I said it to yesterday. This lot, they seem to hate us a little bit and put us through it, and then suddenly come up trumps just at the right moment. So I'm hoping. Almost the opposite of what happened on Saturday comes through. We feel that, oh no, we lost it. Then suddenly in the last 5-10 minutes of games, everything switches around and it goes for us and we scrape into the playoffs, because I think we would then be that team that has the momentum and the boost of getting there. And I think it would line up that we played Bristol Rovers possibly, and they think we're rubbish. So that would be nice that we could surprise them a little bit. I hope, clutching at straws. But as you said, Leon, if at the beginning of August someone had said you're going to finish 8th, 9th, 10th, you would have said, don't be silly, go over, lie down, have a cup of tea, you'll feel better. Because as long as we finish in the top 20, we'll be delighted. But it would feel disappointing.
I know, it would be. Yeah.
There's no way you can say it wouldn't feel disappointing, but realistically it wouldn't be. You'd kind of look back and go, no, this is actually a really good season, a great debut season, safe really early. Although we all joked around about the 50 points and blah, 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 we were safe really, really early. And yeah, we just build on it for next year and possibly further years on, hopefully.
If next year mirrors, us getting back into the National League, then again, there we had a bit of a difficult start, ended up mid-table, and then because the following season not so good in the league but a tremendous cup run, so perhaps we could mirror that the next year. Absolutely.
We're going to need a season of progression, because people keep saying, oh, Sutton fans, you must be in dreamland, you're having great season after season, enjoy it. And it's like, well, we can't enjoy it because it just keeps happening. Let's just slow down, stop and look and go, wow, this was really, really good. I feel very jealous of some of the youngsters who are supporting Sutton for the last couple of years. It's like they've just known success after success. But no, it's a great season. And to think that Matt's only been with us 3 years today, it's his 3-year anniversary. And when you look back, first manager to get us into the Football League, he's finished in the highest 2 positions we've ever had in the last 2 years. There's room for next season to finish in the highest position again as well. So, yeah, it's been tremendous for us and an amazing, amazing journey. As I said, that result, if it had happened in August, we would have just gone, okay, Bradford City smashed us. So what? Let's move on. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that game that makes a season. I think you said yesterday, Neil, there's a few other games we could have pointed out where we got a draw, that we should have had a win, a couple of games where we got a loss where we could have nicked a draw. The Rochdale game, where we got very excited when we pulled it back to 2-2. We got very, very excited. And instead of just going, right, you know what, we'll have this 2-2, we thought we could get it here. And then we got hit on the counter. Actually, had we just settled for the 2-2, or even that awful Oldham game where they got back into it and we were like, oh, no, we could still win this. And they scored again. So there's all these little things that we've been a bit naive in places, but we would be, because it's the first year we've ever had to be professionals. So
we've certainly got a lot with the naivety. We've certainly got a lot more savvy about how to win free kicks and all that sort of thing. If you go back to the very first day of the season, you know, that last injury time winner that Forest Green they bought that free kick. Somebody breathed on the back of his neck, but he went down like a sack of potatoes. And because obviously in that torrential downpour, they put it in the box and nodded in when basically there was no visibility for anybody. So that sort of goes back to the very first day of the season. But we've learnt how to, we found our feet in the ball, and we're playing catch up against a lot of these teams. I look back through the history books, sort of when we got relegated that single season, when we got back into the conference, we went down. Forest Green just finished in the bottom safe place in the National League there. So it's 20 years, our paths have diversified, but we finally caught them up. We're not that far behind. Okay, they're going up a league now, but we're not that far behind. We caught them up, and there's many teams there that were ahead of us at that sort of stage who've now, disappeared, fallen down the leagues, and all that sort of situation. So, we've come a phenomenal way.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to look too hard. It's clubs like Oldham. They'd love to be run like us, whether they were playing in National League, Conference South, whatever. They'd still love to be run the same way Sutton are, and for fans to feel like actually I mean something to this club. I'm not just an annoyance. So yeah, there's loads of clubs that would swap places with us quite happily. So it's been brilliant season. Whatever happens next week, obviously I'm expecting a win and to sneak into the playoffs. So that's what the expectations are, boys. But I'm not gonna sit there crying. What was funny is there's loads of fans giving it that we were crying at Wembley on social media, and I'm laughing, going, well, yeah, technically I was crying at Wembley Way, but it was on the way into the stadium, not the way out of the stadium. That's when the tears were. So people just don't get our sort of our whole philosophy. It's just from top to bottom, from chairman right the way down to fans, but everyone's on the same page, pulling in the same direction, and that is not the same at a lot of clubs when you look into it. So it's brilliant time to be a Sutton supporter. It's always been a brilliant time to be a Sutton supporter, but this year in particular. But I'm going to wrap it up. I've kept you guys for a very long time. I know there's children and puppies that need to be entertained. So thank you both for your time. Thanks everyone for listening. Catch me on any of the socials at Sutton Podcast, and we will see you next week, or not, on Wednesday actually, where I've got some of the Sutton ladies on. I'm not going to do it live because I'm scared of being bullied live. So I'll do a video and I'll take out all the bits where they make me look silly. So it might be like a 5-minute video. But anyway, so yeah, I should have, substitutes permitting, I should have Captain Cindy, I should have Darcy and Fern and Gabby on as well. So depending on obviously availability, but hopefully I should have them. So look out for that on Wednesday, late evening, nighttime. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you all soon. United! 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 United!